Hey yo, what is up guys? Your boy's back, and today we are going to be talking about Thor vs. Hulk, the graphic novel. Alright, so this is actually my first time reading. Mostly, I know I've read stuff with Thor in it before, but this is like the most I've read of him as a central character in the story. And I have to say, Thor is really, really cool, and I quite enjoyed his character. So, I mean, I might get into reading Thor more in the future, but for right now, this was a really good read. So, Thor versus Hulk, I actually just came across this in, what was it, a bookstore. I just had to go by and see what they had, and I just saw this sitting on the shelf. I assume this must have come out around the time Thor Ragnarok was coming out, because Thor versus Hulk, why else would this be in it? Thor and Hulk also fought in that movie. So, Thor versus Hulk, the graphic novel. Okay, so getting into it, it is actually a compilation series taking place from the early 60s all the way up to, I believe, around, I want to say, the Civil War. So that would be about 2006. So, an interesting thing about this is about half of this, I should have really had this bookmarked. About half of this before the fights even take place. This doesn't even take place till the 90s. So at least half of this. Yeah, what was this? 1995. So yeah, all the way up to there. So the book's about however thick, and then that much of it is from the 60s. Just from like 63 to 65 is when a majority of the Hulk and Thor fights came out. So a lot of those had to do with the Avengers. So the Avengers actually got together to stop the Incredible Hulk. A lot of people don't actually know that. So that's the original origin story of the Avengers was that. So yeah, it has to do with the early ones had to do with the Hulk teaming up with the Submariner, and then he would fight off the Avengers. And another really cool story in here had to do with early on was this a bunch of people, civilians, arguing about who was stronger, Thor or the Hulk. And I thought that was really funny. It's just like, imagine that today, just people out arguing about who's the strongest superhero. Like, how cool of a world must you live in for that to be an argument? And then Thor shows up. And yeah, the fighting between the two, it's really cool. And you learn a lot about the Hulk here. The thing is, if you don't have to read, I should say this right now, you don't have to read a whole lot about a character to really know what the character is about. If you've seen one of the movies, you know what the characters are about. You get the gist. You don't really need you don't need to follow every story leading along the way to know what the characters are about. But Hulk, he just really wants to be left alone. He views himself as a threat to humanity, so he just kind of wants to go off and be his own thing. And he doesn't like Bruce Banner. So yeah, you already kind of know these things about the Hulk. And Thor, man of honor over here, a true Viking. And yeah, he always tries to stop the Hulk and reason with him. And yeah, it's a really cool look back. And awesome to have these early issues, to just read early comic books from the 60s and stuff. Just really awesome. They have a lot of words in them, though. So my favorite one, is this one my favorite one? Which one was it? Yeah, I think, where was it? It's a little bit up further ahead here. My favorite one, it had to do with the Thor and Hulk fighting, and then in the end, the Hulk, it's like they're fighting, and they're fighting all the way through these different dimensions and stuff, and different planets, and they're fighting on different worlds. That was easily the coolest one I actually got to read out of all of this, so I just thought that was really, really cool. So here it is, yeah. See, here it is. Here's just some epic artwork. I believe this one's from the late 90s to early 2000s. Yeah, just look at that artwork. Really, really cool. So yeah, this is the one that, this is actually my favorite one that I had the most amount of fun reading. And then, so they're kind of like fighting all along. And then here, they end up in this whole like other dimension right here. Fighting all the way through. So, yeah, I actually really quite enjoyed this. So, if you haven't read much about Thor and the Hulk, this is actually be a really good one to read. A really good compilation to read from different eras and stuff like that if you're into that. Some people, they don't like reading older comics and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I actually really liked how early on there was this really great picture of the Thor and the Hulk fighting, and the writer in the book goes, here, you should buy another issue if you want to use this picture for a pinup, because there was actually this picture right here on the cover is what they used, and like, yeah, you could use that for a pinup if you really like this one very much. So they just completely boasted themselves. So yeah, that's Thor and the Hulk. Also, yeah, so also there was a Thor and the Hulk movie, sort of. It was actually made by Kevin Feige. He had a role in this. He was the producer, I believe, and yeah, so it was part of the Hulk versus series. So it was the Hulk versus Thor and Hulk versus Wolverine. I'd seen the Hulk versus Wolverine before, but I'd never seen the Hulk versus Thor. And I watched it to see if they borrowed any of the stories from the book, and they actually didn't. They kind of came up with their own original story, unless it's from a comic series that wasn't in this, which I could find weird. So I don't actually know where it takes place. So yeah, and it was really quite good. Loki's heavily involved in it. Loki kind of takes over Hulk, and then he attacks Asgard with the Hulk, and he splits up Bruce Banner, and yeah, so it actually had a really cool setup and a cool plot. But I don't know, I wouldn't say I like the Wolverine versus the Hulk a little better. But yeah, so I mean that's the animated version. If you do want to check that out, I find like kids and stuff would get a lot more of a kick out of it than I really did. I think the animation, it came out in 2009. It was alright, it was pretty good, but it wasn't like, oh, mind blown, and I gotta come back and watch this, so, yeah. That's Thor vs. the Hulk, has 14 issues in it, the graphic novel. I think I paid $40 for it. Whoopity-doo. Yeah. So, that's that, and would I say you should get it? If you're a fan or you want to get into reading the Hulk or Thor, yeah, I'd say check it out. I don't know if it's the best compilation I've ever read. It seemed kind of strange to me, because it's like they didn't fight for a very long time, so it's like you think they have this big feud going. I don't know, I never really got the sense Thor and Hulk had this huge feud, but yeah. But it was really interesting to read. Also, so for future comic book videos, which I'll be making more of, this is the third one I'm making along with the Venom movies. So I'm going to be doing about the Spider-Man movies, and so I'll be using a lot of this Bible here, Amazing Spider-Man, Great Power, talk a lot about the Spider-Man movies. I want to talk about, I also want to talk about Fantastic Four and X-Men, but we'll start with the Spider-Man movies and we'll work our way down to the X-Men and stuff. So yeah, I'll be talking a lot about the Spider-Man movies, so I'll be referencing a lot of the stuff in this. So stay tuned for that, because yeah, it'll be probably some really interesting stuff I'll be able to talk about because of it, comparing and contrasting what they took from the comics and put in the movies. Or what they could have put in the movies. Ooh. And also, here will just be a solo comic book review. Is Spider-Man versus Todd McFarlane. This is a very, very, very iconic picture of the Spider-Man. I've seen lots of these on shirts. And yeah, so I can't wait to read through that. And I'll also do a review for that for you guys. So thank you all for watching, and be sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe. Peace out, dudes.